You must understand that the sun does not grant permission for the day to begin, it simply arrives. Most men spend their lives waiting for permission, waiting for the warmth of the blankets to fade, waiting for the mind to feel ready, waiting for a sign that the time is right to act. But the warrior knows that the moment you open your eyes, you are already standing on a battlefield. If you wait for the world to wake up before you find your footing, you have already surrendered the high ground. To wake like the 1% is not a matter of a clock or a schedule. It is the first strike in a war against your own weakness. When the room is cold and the shadows are still long, there is a voice that whispers of safety. It tells you that an extra hour of rest will make you stronger. It is a lie. That voice is your greatest enemy, a phantom swordsman that strikes at your resolve before you have even stood up. If you cannot defeat a thought in the stillness of your own room, how do you expect to defeat an opponent in the heat of the sun? The advantage I speak of is won in the silence. It is the pre-dawn advantage, where you claim your spirit back from the world before the world has a chance to demand it from you. Think of the smithy. The steel is not shaped when it is cold and resting, it is shaped when it is pulled from the coals while the rest of the earth is still dark. By rising while others sleep, you are heating the metal of your will. You are establishing a rhythm that the rest of the world cannot follow. While your rivals are dreaming of victory, you are already living it. This is the essence of winning the battle before it starts. If you arrive at the dueling ground and your mind is still sluggish from sleep, your technique matters nothing. Your sword will be heavy and your feet will be slow. But if you have already conquered yourself 3 hours prior, the duel itself is merely a formality. You have already walked the path, the opponent is simply a ghost standing in your way. I have spent my life wandering the provinces, sleeping in the brush and under the eaves of temples, and I have found that the spirit of a man is most visible in the first moment of consciousness. Does he reach for comfort or does he reach for his purpose? To wake with intent is to sharpen your perception. When you step out into the early air, the world is sharp and clear. There is no noise of commerce, no shouting of egos, no dust raised by the hooves of passing horses. There is only the void and your place within it. This is the psychological dominance required to master any craft. You must become the master of the space around you. By claiming the dawn, you dictate the terms of the engagement for the next 16 hours. You are no longer reacting to the day is reacting to you. Do not mistake this for mere discipline. Discipline is a word for those who still feel the struggle. For the 1%, this is a necessity of nature, as natural as the blade finding the sheath. If you wish to walk the way, you must realize that there is no off-duty. Every breath is a practice. Every moment of hesitation is a crack in your armor. When you rise before the light, you're sealing those cracks. You are telling the universe that your will is the primary force in your life. Most people are like leaves on a river, pulled by the current of their moods and the demands of others. The warrior is the rock in that river. The morning habit is how you find your weight, how you sink your roots deep into the earth so that no storm can move you. Consider the nature of the strike. A strike that is hurried is easily parried. A strike that is hesitant never reaches its mark. Only a strike delivered with no mind, with a total lack of doubt, finds the target. You cultivate this no mind by making the act of rising an absolute command. There is no negotiation. There is no 5 more minutes. To negotiate with your own laziness is to invite a blade into your ribs. You must move with the decisiveness of a falling axe. This internal speed is what separates the master from the student. The student thinks about the move, the master is the move. By the time the sun touches the horizon, the 1% have already completed the inner work. They have faced the void, they have endured the cold, and they have centered their spirit. They walk into the marketplace not as seekers but as providers of order. This is the Dakota, the way of walking alone. It is a lonely path, yes, but it is the only path that leads to the summit. If you look around and see everyone else doing as you do, you are moving in the wrong direction. The crowd seeks the sun because they need its warmth to feel alive. The warrior carries his own fire. We wake like this because we understand that time is not a resource to be spent but a distance to be conquered. Every second you spend in the haze of half-sleep is a second your enemy spends sharpening his edge. Do not give him that distance. Close the gap. Be the first to breathe the morning air, the first to set your feet on the ground, and the first to commit to the work. In the Book of 5 Rings, I wrote that you must make your everyday stance your fighting stance. This begins the moment the eyes open. If your waking stance is one of collapse and avoidance, your fighting stance will be hollow. You cannot switch on greatness like a lamp. It must be the oil that has been burning since the middle of the night. This is how you forge a life that others call legendary. They see the final stroke of the sword, but they do not see the 1,000 mornings in the dark where the arm was strengthened. They see the victory, but they do not see the pre-dawn war. If you truly wish to be among the 1%, you must fall in love with the solitude of the early hour. You must find a strange joy in the silence that others find terrifying. In that silence you will hear the truth of your own soul. You will see your weaknesses clearly and you will have the quiet space to cut them away. This is the daily habit that forges the man. It is not a secret technique or a hidden scroll. It is the simple, brutal act of being the first to rise and the last to waver. The sun is rising, the battle has already been decided. Would you like me to adapt the next key point regarding strategic silence into this same first-person perspective? Once the body has been commanded to rise, the next struggle begins within the temple of the mind. Most men, the moment they have left their beds, begin to fill their heads with the chatter of the world. They seek out news of distant places, the grievances of their neighbors, or the trivial anxieties of what they must eat or wear. They are like a man who sharpens his sword and then immediately thrusts it into the mud. What use is the edge if you dull it with filth before the first strike? To wake like the 1%, you must understand the power of the void. You must step into the morning not with a mind full of thoughts, but with a mind that is wide, clear, and empty. This is the strategic silence that allows you to see the world as it truly is, rather than how you fear or hope it to be. In my years of wandering, I have observed that the greatest undoing of a warrior is not a lack of skill, but a cluttered spirit. When the mind is filled with the noise of daily life, it becomes heavy. It cannot react to the sudden movement of an enemy. It becomes fixed on one point, and as I have always taught, fixation is the birthday of misfortune. If you are thinking of your debts while you are in a duel, you are already dead. Therefore, the morning must be a time of intentional emptiness. This is not the emptiness of a fool, but the emptiness of a mirror. A mirror does not choose what it reflects, it simply shows the truth because it holds nothing of itself. When you sit in the silence of the early hour, you are cleaning that mirror. You are removing the dust of yesterday so that you can perceive the opportunities of today with a piercing gaze. Consider the water of a mountain lake. When the wind blows and the surface is agitated, you cannot see the stones at the bottom. You cannot see the fish moving in the depths. You see only the distorted reflection of the sky. But when the wind dies down and the water becomes still, the depths reveal themselves. The morning is your time to still the wind. If you immediately begin to worry about your status, your rivals, or your hunger, you are stirring the water. You are making yourself blind to the subtle openings that life presents to those who are calm. The 1% understand that clarity is a weapon, perhaps the most lethal weapon in their arsenal. They do not rush into the day with frantic energy, they move into it from a position of absolute stillness. This silence is not merely the absence of sound, it is a deliberate fortification of the spirit. I have called this the void because it is the place where all things are possible. In the void there is no I and there is no enemy. There is only the flow of the moment. When you cultivate this silence as a daily habit, you develop a sense of timing that others find supernatural. You begin to sense the rhythm of the day before it unfolds. You see the collision coming before the impact occurs. This is why I say that the way is in all things. If you can master the silence of your own mind at dawn, you can master the chaos of the battlefield at noon. The two are not different. The internal noise is just a different kind of opponent, one that requires a different kind of strike, a strike of let go, a strike of detachment. Most people are terrified of this silence. They find it cold, they find it lonely. They fill their ears with music and their eyes with scrolls because they are afraid of what they will find if they are left alone with their own spirit. But the warrior thrives in this coldness. In the silence you find your true center. You see your own pride, your own cowardice, and your own distractions for what they are: phantoms. You look at them, you acknowledge them, and then you let them pass through the void. You do not fight them. To fight a phantom is to give it substance. You simply remain empty and the phantoms have nothing to cling to. By the time the world begins its clamor, your mind is like a polished stone. The noise of the world hits it and slides off, leaving no mark. You must practice this until your mind and your body are one in their stillness. Do not be hurried in your spirit. Even when your movements are swift, your mind should be calm. This morning silence is the training ground for that duality. If you can sit for an hour in the dark and feel no urge to move, no urge to speak, and no urge to think of the future, then you are becoming a master of time itself. You are no longer a slave to the ticking of the clock or the demands of the belly. You are existing in the eternal now. From this state of no mind, every action you take for the rest of the day will be infused with a terrifying precision. Your words will be fewer, but they will carry more weight. Your movements will be fewer, but they will be more effective. You will find that you no longer need to try to be productive or try to be brave, you simply are. I have seen men of great physical strength crumble because their minds were like a bird trapped in a cage, flapping and shrieking at every change in the wind. And I have seen men of slight build dominate their surroundings because their minds were like the deep ocean, immovable, silent, and containing vast power beneath the surface. The habit of the 1% is the habit of the deep ocean. They do not waste their spirit on the ripples of the surface. They stay in the depths. This silence is your sanctuary, but it is also your vantage point. From the height of this morning stillness, you can see the entire landscape of your life. You can see which paths lead to the thicket and which paths lead to the clearing. Do not think that this is a waste of time. The world will tell you that you must be doing something at all times to be successful. The world is wrong. The most important work you will ever do is the work of stabilizing your own internal compass. A man who runs fast but in the wrong direction is more lost than a man who stands still. By embracing the silence of the dawn, you ensure that every step you take thereafter is in the direction of your ultimate purpose. You are not just waking up to exist, you are waking up to execute a grand design. And that design can only be seen when the mind is a blank scroll ready for the first brushstroke of the day. When you finally break the silence, let it be with a word of command, not a sigh of exhaustion. Let your first interaction with the world be one of deliberate choice. Because you have spent the early hours in the void, you have a reservoir of peace that the world cannot tap into unless you allow it. You are the master of your gates. You decide what enters and what stays out. This is the ultimate freedom. While others are being pushed and pulled by the winds of circumstance, you are walking through the storm with a mind that is as quiet as a forest after a snowfall. This is how the spirit is forged. This is how the 1% remain untouched by the chaos that consumes the masses. Know the void and you will know the way. Once the mind has been stilled in the void, the body must be brought into the fire. There are those who believe that the spirit and the flesh are separate things, that one can be sharp while the other is dull. This is a delusion that will cost you your life. In the way of the warrior, the body is the sheath and the spirit is the blade. If the sheath is rotten, the blade will eventually rust. To wake like the 1% is to engage in the ritual of kaji, the forging. Just as the swordsmith beats the impurities out of the iron with a heavy hammer, you must use the morning to beat the softness out of your own soul. You do not exercise for the sake of vanity or to look pleasing to the eye. You train to harden the vessel so that it can contain the immense pressure of your ambition. Think of the way a blade is made. It is not enough to simply have good metal. The metal must be heated until it glows with a terrifying intensity, and then it must be struck over and over with relentless force. If the smith is gentle, the sword will be brittle. If the smith skips a single step, the sword will shatter when it meets the resistance of a bone. Your morning ritual must be your hammer. When you choose to do that which is difficult, whether it is lifting a heavy weight, enduring the bite of cold water, or pushing your lungs until they burn, you are performing kaji. You are intentionally introducing stress into your system so that stress becomes your natural element. Most men spend their mornings seeking a state of equilibrium, a comfortable temperature. The 1% seek the heat of the forge. When I speak of the spirit being forged like steel, I am speaking of the fundamental relationship between discomfort and resolve. If you only move when you feel ready, you are a slave to your sensations. A warrior must be able to move with total precision even when he is freezing, even when he is starving, and even when his muscles scream for release. By imposing a voluntary hardship upon yourself the moment you wake, you are training your nervous system to obey your will rather than your instincts. You are telling your body, I am the master here. Your pain is merely information, not a command. This is why the 1% do not look for the easy path in the morning, they look for the resistance. They know that strength is not a static quality, it is a byproduct of friction. I have spent many winters in the mountains, standing under icy waterfalls to purify my intent. The water does not care for your rank or your history, it simply crushes you with its weight and numbs you with its cold. In those moments your ego vanishes. You cannot pretend to be a master when your teeth are chattering. You can only survive by centering your spirit and refusing to break. This is the essence of kaji. When you incorporate such rigors into your daily habit, you build a second skin of resilience. By the time you face the trials of the world, the betrayals in business, the losses in life, the exhaustion of the journey, they will seem minor. You will look at them and think, I have already faced the hammer this morning, this is nothing. You gain a perspective that the soft man can never understand. To him, a setback is a tragedy, to you, it is just more fuel for the fire. You must also understand that the way you treat your body in the morning dictates the density of your presence throughout the day. A man who has not tested his physical limits has a thin spirit. He is easily pushed aside. His voice lacks the resonance of conviction. But a man who has just come from the forge carries an aura of gravity. He walks into a room and the air changes. This is because he has reclaimed his physical existence from the grip of lethality. He knows exactly what his body can endure and therefore he fears nothing. In the Book of Five Rings, I emphasize that you must be able to maintain your stance even in the midst of a chaotic melee. This stability starts with the kaji. If you haven't hardened your legs through discipline, they will tremble when the swords start to clash. If you haven't hardened your grip, your weapon will be taken from you. The 1% do not view their morning training as a chore to be gotten over with. They view it as a sacred appointment with their own potential. Every repetition of a movement, every minute of sustained effort is a prayer to the God of the way. You are refining the tool. You are making it so that when the mind gives the order to strike, the body responds without a microsecond of lag. This instantaneous action is only possible when the flesh has been tempered. A body that is pampered is slow. A body that is coddled is loud, it complains, it distracts the mind with its petty needs. But a forged body is silent and obedient. It becomes a ghost, moving exactly as the spirit dictates, with no friction between thought and execution. Do not be fooled into thinking that you need grand equipment or a lavish dojo for this forging. The earth is your floor and the air is your resistance. The weight of your own body and the weight of your own shadows are enough to provide the struggle. What matters is the intensity of the intent. You must strike the anvil with the intention of breaking it. You must run with the intention of outrunning your past self. This is the combat mindset applied to the mundane. If you approach your morning training with a half-hearted spirit, you are merely going through the motions, and you will produce a decorative soul beautiful to look at but useless in a fight. You must train with the spirit of the kill. Every breath should be taken as if it were your last, and every movement should be executed as if your life depended on it. Because in truth it does. A life without the forge is a life that will be cut down by the first real challenge it encounters. As you finish this forging, as the sweat cools and the heart rate slows, you will feel a change in the quality of your being. The metal of your character has become more compact. You are no longer the same person who lay under the covers an hour ago. You have been transformed through heat and pressure. This is the secret of the 1%. While the rest of the world is still trying to wake up, you have already been born again in the fire. You carry the warmth of the forge within you. You are prepared to meet the world not as a victim of its whims but as a shaper of its reality. You have earned your place on the path because you have paid the price in effort. The iron that refuses the hammer remains nothing but a rock in the dirt. Once the spirit has been stilled in the void and the body has been tempered in the forge, there is a dangerous trap that many fall into. They believe that the training is over because the formal practice has ended. They set down their weights or step out of the cold and allow their spirits to relax, thinking that the rest of the day is merely ordinary time. This is a grave error. To the 1%, there is no such thing as an ordinary moment. To wake like this is to realize that the way is in all things, in the way you fold your robes, the way you pour your tea, and the way you step across a threshold. If you are a master in the dojo but a slob in your kitchen, you are not a master, you are a performer. True discipline is not a garment you put on for an hour, it is the skin you live in. I have often said that you should do nothing which is of no use. Most men waste their spirits through 1,000 small leaks of inattention. They perform the mundane tasks of the morning with a wandering mind and a heavy hand. They brush aside the small things to get to what they deem the large things. But how can you trust your hand to be precise in a life-or-death duel if you cannot command it to be precise when you pick up a chopstick? The habit of the 1% is to treat the mundane as the ultimate training ground for the profound. You must apply the same intensity, the same single purpose, to washing your face as you would to a strike aimed at an opponent's throat. This is the secret of total integration. When the small actions are perfected, the great actions take care of themselves. Consider the carpenter. He does not become a master only when he builds a palace. He becomes a master in the way he sharpens his plane, in the way he sweeps the wood shavings from his floor, and in the way he measures a single grain of wood. If he is careless with the shavings, he will eventually be careless with the joint and the palace will lean. Your life is the palace. The mundane tasks of your morning are the foundation stones. If you rush through them, seeking only to be done with them, you are practicing the habit of rushing. You are training your brain to seek the end of an experience rather than the mastery of it. This creates a leaky spirit. When the time comes for deep focus or high-stakes negotiation, you will find that your mind has already been conditioned to seek the exit. You will lack the staying power required to dominate your field. When you move through your morning, do so with a quieted elegance. This does not mean moving slowly, it means moving without wasted energy. Observe how a cat moves. Whether it is stretching in the sun or leaping for a kill, its grace is constant. It does not turn on its focus only when it sees prey. The focus is its natural state. You must become the same. If you make your bed, do it so perfectly that it could be a work of art. Not because anyone is watching, but because you are watching. You are the witness to your own standards. By demanding perfection in the mundane, you eliminate the possibility of mediocrity in the professional. You create a psychological environment where good enough no longer exists. This is the 1% standard. It is a ruthless adherence to quality in the dark where no one will ever applaud you. I have found that the way a man holds his bowl reveals everything about how he holds his sword. A man with a tight, nervous grip on his bowl will have a rigid, breakable defense. A man who is distracted while he eats will be distracted when he is under pressure. Therefore, use these early hours to practice Zanshin, the state of relaxed awareness. As you dress, feel the texture of the cloth. As you walk across the room, feel the connection between your soles and the floor. This is not meditation in the sense of retreating from the world. It is immersion in the sense of conquering the world through presence. When you are fully present in a mundane task, you are sharpening your perception. You are learning to see the hidden details, the slight fraying of a thread, the subtle change in the air, the rhythm of your own breath. In a duel, these are the details that tell you when the enemy is about to move. In life, these are the details that tell you when a market is about to shift or when a partner is losing trust. Most people live their lives in a state of half-presence. They are physically in the room, but their minds are already at the office or stuck in a conversation from last night. They are fragmented. A fragmented spirit is easily shattered. The habit of the 1% is to remain whole at all times. By focusing entirely on the task at hand, no matter how trivial, you are stitching your spirit back together. You are training yourself to be a singular point of force. This is why I speak of the way of the brush and the sword. They are the same. The focus required to paint a perfect circle is the same focus required to cut through a helmet. If you treat your morning chores as beneath you, you are essentially saying that your focus is for sale, that you only give it when the reward is high. But the warrior gives his focus to the moment, regardless of the reward. The reward is the mastery of the self. Think of your morning as a series of miniature duels. Every task is an opponent that wants to distract you, to make you hurry, or to make you settle for fine. Every time you resist that urge and choose precision instead, you win. By the time you leave your house, you have already won 20 duels. You carry the momentum of a conqueror. You are not starting your day, you are continuing a streak of victories. This creates a profound sense of internal authority. You no longer need external validation or a good day to feel successful. Your success is rooted in the fact that you have governed your own hands and mind with absolute sovereignty since the moment you woke up. This precision also serves to save your spirit from exhaustion. Wasted movement is what tires a man. When you move with no waste, you find that you have more energy at the end of the day than you did at the beginning. The mundane becomes a way to conserve your power. By doing things correctly the first time with total intent, you avoid the need for correction, for regret, or for redo. You move through your morning like a blade through silk, smooth, effortless, and final. This is the hallmark of the master. While others are tripping over their own feet and fumbling with their own thoughts, you are moving with a terrifying economy of motion. You are becoming a force of nature. Understand that the way is not a destination you reach, it is the manner in which you travel. If you do not find the way in the mundane, you will never find it in the extraordinary. The great moments of your life will be nothing more than a reflection of your smallest habits. If you wish to be the one who stands victorious at the end of the battle, you must be the one who stood with perfect intent at the beginning of the morning. You must treat every second as if it were the turning point of a war, because in the grand design of your life, it is. The tip of the needle contains the entire sky. As you move deeper into the morning, you will find that the greatest threat to your ascension is not an external enemy, but the seduction of comfort. Most men spend their entire lives building a fortress of ease around themselves. They seek the softest bed, the warmest fire, and the path of least resistance. They believe that by avoiding hardship, they are preserving their lives. In truth, they are suffocating their spirits. To wake like the 1% is to recognize that comfort is a slow poison. It dulls the senses, weakens the resolve, and makes a man vulnerable to the first cold wind of misfortune. To walk the way, you must cultivate a profound detachment from the lures of the flesh. You must learn to treat comfort with suspicion and to embrace the harsh as your most trusted teacher. I have lived a life stripped of luxuries. I have slept in the rain and walked through the snow with nothing but the clothes on my back and my 2 swords. I did not do this because I was a pauper, but because I knew that to be attached to a warm room is to be a prisoner of that room. If your happiness depends on the temperature of your bath or the softness of your pillow, you have given your power away to things that can be taken from you in a single heartbeat. The warrior seeks a state of being that is independent of his surroundings. By choosing the hard path in the morning, by refusing the extra layer of warmth, by standing when your body begs to sit, by seeking the bite of the wind, you are practicing the art of detachment. You are proving to yourself that your spirit is the master and your body is merely the servant. Consider the nature of a sword. A sword that is kept in a velvet-lined box, never exposed to the air or the clash of steel, may look beautiful, but it is not a sword, it is a trinket. It is only through the hard use, through the cutting and the parrying, that the blade finds its purpose. You are the same. If you coddle yourself, you remain a trinket. You must be willing to be used by your purpose, and that use requires a certain roughness. The 1% understand that the easy life is the death of the warrior spirit. They intentionally seek out the rough edges of the morning because they know that those edges sharpen their character. They do not ask, "How can I make this morning more pleasant?" They ask, "What must I endure today to become more than I was yesterday?" This detachment is not a form of self-punishment, it is a form of liberation. When you are no longer a slave to your comforts, you become terrifyingly free. You can go anywhere, face any opponent, and endure any setback because your internal state is not tied to your external circumstances. Most people are fragile, they break when the world stops being kind to them. But if you have already denied yourself kindness in the morning, the world's cruelty has no leverage over you. You have already faced the worst of the day within the walls of your own discipline. This is the psychological high ground. While others are complaining about the weather or the quality of their food, you are moving toward your goal with a mind that is as cold and indifferent as stone. You have found a joy that is deeper than pleasure, the joy of total self-sovereignty. In the Book of 5 Rings, I wrote that you must not have a favorite weapon. Similarly, you must not have a favorite state of being. You must be just as effective in the mud as you are on the silk mat. If you are only a high performer when everything is perfect, when you have had your coffee, when the room is quiet, when your body feels rested, then you are a fair-weather warrior. You are useless in a real crisis. The morning habit of the 1% is designed to break this dependency. They train themselves to operate at their peak precisely when they feel the least like doing so. They learn to find their center in the midst of discomfort. This is the unmoving mind. It is the ability to stand in the fire and not feel the heat because your focus is not on the flame but on the strike you are about to deliver. Look at the people around you. They are governed by their likes and dislikes. They spend their energy chasing what is pleasant and running from what is unpleasant. They are like children ruled by the whims of their bellies and their skin. The 1% have outgrown this. They have realized that pleasure is a fleeting shadow and discomfort is a permanent forge. By detaching from the need for comfort, they gain access to a reservoir of energy that others can never touch. They don't waste spirit on complaining. They don't waste time on seeking relief. They simply act. This detachment gives them a speed that is almost supernatural. While the crowd is still debating whether they feel motivated enough to start, the warrior has already covered 5 miles of the road. You must realize that yourself is not your body. Your body is a tool like a horse or a boat. You must care for it, yes, but you must never let it dictate the direction of the journey. If the horse is tired, you still ride. If the boat is leaking, you still row. By denying the body its petty cravings in the morning, you are asserting the dominance of the true self. You are clearing away the fog of sensation so that the light of intent can shine through. This is the 1% wake up. It is a daily declaration of independence from the tyranny of the flesh. It is the realization that you are not a creature of circumstances, but a creator of destiny. I have found that the more a man possesses, the more he is possessed. This applies not just to gold and land, but to the possessions of the mind, the desire for safety, the craving for approval, the need for ease. To be a master, you must be empty-handed. You must be able to walk away from anything, including your own comfort, without a backward glance. This morning habit is how you practice that walking away. Each morning, you walk away from the warmth of the bed. You walk away from the safety of the familiar, you walk away from the easy thoughts, and in that walking away, you find your strength. You find that you do not need the things you thought you needed. You are enough, your will is enough, your blade is enough. Do not seek to be comfortable in your life, seek to be capable. Capability is forged in the absence of comfort. It is found in the moments when you choose the hard path simply because it is the hard path. When you make this detachment a daily habit, you become a mountain. The clouds of pleasure and pain may swirl around you, but the mountain remains. The seasons may change, the winds may howl, but the mountain does not move. You become a fixed point in a world of chaos. And from that fixed point, you can move the world. The man who loves his bed more than his purpose will eventually lose both. Now we reach the final gate. You have conquered the bed, you have stilled the mind in the void, you have tempered the flesh in the forge, you have perfected the mundane, and you have detached yourself from the poison of comfort. But all of this, every breath and every drop of sweat, is utterly meaningless if it does not culminate in a single devastating strike. The 1% do not wake up simply to be disciplined, they wake up to execute a purpose. In the way of the warrior, there is no such thing as trying. There is only the intent and the result. To wake like this is to live by the single purpose commandment: do nothing which is of no use and do everything with the intent to finish it. Most men are like archers who spend all their time polishing their bows and feathers, yet never release the string. They are busy being disciplined, but they are not productive in their path. They mistake the preparation for the battle itself. You must understand that the morning ritual is not the destination. It is the sharpening of the sword so that when you strike, the cut is clean. When the sun finally crosses the horizon and you step into your work, you must move with no way back, resolve. You do not enter the marketplace or the council chamber to see how things go. You enter to dominate the space and fulfill your objective with the same finality as a blade meeting a neck. This is the transition from the internal forge to the external execution. In my duels, I never sought to exchange many blows with my opponent. To trade strikes is to rely on luck. I sought the single blow. I observed the rhythm of the enemy, found the opening, and ended the encounter in one movement. Your day must be approached with this same economy of force. Do not scatter your spirit across 100 trivial tasks. Identify the one thing that will move your mountain and strike it with everything you have. The 1% do not have to-do lists, they have missions. They do not multitask, for to multitask is to have a divided heart. A divided heart cannot cut through steel. You must bring the entirety of your stilled mind and your tempered body to bear upon a single point until it gives way. There is a term I use: to strike with the spirit of the long sword. It means to reach out and touch your goal with a broad, decisive motion that leaves no room for doubt. When you begin your work after your morning of forge and silence, do not hesitate. Hesitation is the gap where failure grows. If you have prepared correctly, your intuition will be sharp. Trust it. Move before your intellect has the chance to invent excuses. Most people fail because they think too much at the moment of action. They have a polluted intent. They want the result, but they also want to be safe, they want to be liked, and they want to be comfortable. The warrior wants only the result. This singularity of focus is what makes the 1% appear like giants among men. They move with a weight and a speed that others cannot comprehend because they have no internal friction. You must also learn the spirit of the second strike. If your first attempt does not succeed, you do not pause to lament or to wonder why. You strike again instantly with even greater resolve. But this is only possible if you have not exhausted your spirit on trivialities. This is why the morning habit of doing nothing which is of no use is so vital. You are conserving your killing intent for the moments that matter. If you have spent your morning worrying about your appearance or the opinions of others, you will have no fire left for the actual duel. The 1% appear tireless because they only spend their energy on that which is useful. They are masters of the shortcut, not the lazy path, but the path of most direct impact. I have seen many men who are masters of technique but slaves to their own vanity. They want the world to see how hard they work. They want the world to admire their discipline. This is a useful thought in the beginning, but it eventually becomes a burden. To truly wake like the 1%, you must become invisible in your intent. You do not need the world to know you are working, you only need the world to feel the results of your work. The sun does not announce its arrival with a shout, it simply rises and changes the world. Your single purpose should be the same, it should be an unstoppable force that requires no explanation. When you are focused on a single purpose, you become a part of the natural law, you are no longer working, you are functioning as a force of nature. As the day progresses, keep the void in your heart. Do not let the chaos of the afternoon steal the peace you found at dawn. If you find yourself becoming frantic, return to your breath. Remember the cold water of the forge. Remember the silence of the pre-dawn room. You carry your temple within you. The single purpose is your anchor. When the world tries to pull you in 10 different directions, you ask yourself one question: does this serve the strike? If it does not, it is of no use. Cast it aside. This ruthlessness is the hallmark of the master. It is better to do one thing perfectly than to do 100 things poorly. The 1% are defined by what they refuse to do as much as by what they accomplish. Understand that the end of the day is simply the preparation for the next morning. There is no finish line. The way is a circle, not a race. By concluding your day with the same precision and intentionality with which you began it, you ensure that the forge never goes cold. You review your strikes, you sharpen your edge, and you return to the stillness. This is the rhythm of the legend. It is a life lived in a state of constant readiness. You are never off guard. You are never surprised. You are always the predator, never the prey. You have forged a life that is a single, continuous brushstroke of excellence.